Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Liniger. Let's make history today as we go over Unit 3, Day 5. We're going to spend the next two videos going over imperialism of mostly Africa and Asia when European countries start to exert political, economic, and social control over Africa and Asia. But let's get started with our daily punishment. Did you hear about the cross-eyed teacher? He couldn't control his pupils. Teacher joke. Key terms for today: British East India Company, French East India Company, Dutch East India Company, the British Raj, Sarakat Islam, Java, French Indochina, Robert Clive, the Battle of Plassey, the Sepoy Mutiny, the Indian National Congress, the All-Muslim League, Muhammad Gandhi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Mouridia Brotherhood, French West Africa, and Nigeria. We're going to go over the causes of colonialism, and we're going to talk about colonialism in India, Java, and Indochina, its causes and its effects. All right, so at first, when European countries start taking over Africa and Asia, they're going to take them over with joint stock companies. We talked about joint stock companies before. Joint stock companies were privately owned. People would buy stocks in the company, and if the company made money through like trade and through like getting natural resources in the colonies, and the people that owned the stocks would get money. The king of the country would grant a charter to that joint stock company, and they would be like semi-privately ran. A lot of times there'd be more self-government there. The major joint stock companies are the British East India Company, which is going to control India, the Dutch East India Company, which is going to control Java, and the French East India Company, which is going to control Indochina. In the beginning, for the British and the Dutch, they're going to establish themselves atop the indigenous social hierarchy. They will try to accommodate themselves to ecology. They're going to start wearing a lot of cotton clothing. They'll start having new types of housing, dress, work habits. At first, the major colonial people that move there will be male. Liaisons with indigenous women will be common. They will intermarry with local women to produce mixed groups. You'll see syncretism of styles and religions. Let's first start talking about the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch are going to take over Java, which is in Southeast Asia. It's part of those islands in Indonesia. At first, the Dutch allowed themselves to be vassals of the Sultan of Mataram. After 1670, the Dutch will win control over most of Java. They allowed the sultans to retain control of their small kingdoms in the islands, as long as they did what the Dutch said. The Dutch will create a new political framework. They'll systematically replace the local rulers and states with colonial states. They'll impose a modern European bureaucracy on them. They will leave many local institutions, elites in place, as long as they cooperate with the Dutch and fulfill their economic quotas for natural resources. Not all the local Javanese people will be happy about this. There will be some groups formed. One of the major groups is called Sarakat Islam. This is going to unite different kinds of people in Indonesia, Muslims, into one mass movement. It's going to be modeled after like the Indian National Congress. And they're going to try to push for independence for Java from the Dutch. This right here shows the Dutch East Indies. It's right below Indochina. Let's talk about French Indochina next. The French will fight the Chinese, the Vietnamese, and Siam to acquire colonies, and they're going to fight them from 1859 to 1882 when they get control over most of Indochina. Indochina is right here. This is right above Java, right below China. If you look at these two maps, it makes up countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Siam. If you remember from Vietnam before, Vietnam has a history of wanting independence. So the Vietnamese will fight back against the French. They're going to basically have one continuous rebellion against the French until they finally kick them out in the 1950s. There will be many peasant guerrilla insurrections, Buddhist rebellions against French influence. France will try to create a um, imperial state in Vietnam. Before this time period, Vietnam's imperial state was based on Confucian bureaucracy because remember, Vietnam was influenced hesitantly by China. The French will introduce European administration for taxing and fiscal system, but they will leave a lot of the local elites in place. They'll leave the Confucian ruling elites in place. They'll still have a traditional social structure, but these people will have very little influence. They're just basically doing what the French wants. A lot of the people in Vietnam will convert to Roman Catholicism. The French will try to get the Vietnamese to culturally assimilate to French culture. They'll allow the local elites to rule. They'll send some of them to French colleges and French universities. Let's talk about the British Raj. Britain, like we talked about last unit, is gradually going to start taking over India. Britain is going to get support from some Hindus when the Mughal dynasty becomes more anti-Hindu. Britain's going to win India in the 7 Years' War after they defeat the French. The big battle during the 7 Years' War was won by Robert Clive, where he defeated the French and some of the French allied Indian powers in the Battle of Plassey in 1757. Clive had the support of Hindu bankers, and after this, Britain's going to start to take more and more control over India. At first, it's going to be the joint stock company controlling India. It's not going to be the British government directly. India will be controlled by the British East India Company at first, for like the first 100 years. So India was controlled by the British East India Company. They employed their own army of Sepoys. Sepoys were native Indians, Hindus, and Muslims. One of the things that's going to cause a problem is the Sepoy Rebellion of 1858. In the Sepoy Rebellion, there was a rumor started that the British were purposely using gunpowder with cow fat and pig fat. When people used rifles back in the day, you would have these little pouches of gunpowder that you'd have to bite into to pour the gunpowder in the gun so it could fire. People would always smear animal fat on the gun pouches to prevent them from ripping. There was a rumor started that the British were specifically using cow fat and pig fat on their gunpowder pouches. This was probably not true. This would upset the Muslims and the Hindus. Muslims do not eat pigs, and Hindus do not eat cows. There's no reason for the British to troll the Hindus and Muslims for no reason. But this rumor did get started. Really, it probably started because the Hindus and Muslims already resented the British for taking control over their country. And this is going to lead to a large rebellion in India against the British. A couple of British armies will be wiped out. The British will eventually gain control. But after this, the British government is going to take full control over India. In India, Britain will export opium, cotton, indigo, dye, cotton textiles, tea, and rubber. Like I said before, in 1858, the United Kingdom will take over the British East India Company after the Sepoy Rebellion. They'll rule India directly. They'll appoint their own governors. They'll create a cabinet position for the leader of India. They'll allow high caste Indians to hold high positions in India. There are going to be some nationalist movements in India to push for independence. The first nationalist movement you need to know about is the Indian National Congress. The Indian National Congress was led by Western educated elites. These were people that their parents were usually working for the British government. They were educated in British schools, and they're going to use their education to try to push for independence. Two of the major leaders of the Indian National Congress will be Mahatma Gandhi, who's going to do nonviolent civil disobedience when we get to next unit, and Jawaharlal Nehru. Another group that's going to be formed is the All-Muslim League. Remember, a minority of people in India were Muslim. The Muslims were worried that if India became independent, the Muslims would be discriminated against. So the All-Muslim League not only wanted independence, but they wanted there to be a separate state for Muslims and Hindus. And this is going to be led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. England will try to get rid of some of the worst aspects of the caste system, uh, but they will still rule through the elite Muslims and Hindus. So the caste system will really kind of stay. The British will abolish sati, like the widow burning, and it's going to try to get rid of some of the, untouchable aspects of the caste system. The British officials will be accompanied by their wives, and they're going to be socially and intellectually aloof from their Indian subjects. The Indian population will increase with new foodstuffs, and some of the Indian poor people that were starving in India will actually move to Britain and work in the factories, kind of similar to what was happening with the Irish moving to America. So you will see some people in India moving to some of the parts of the British Empire to work in factories or to work on some like agricultural fields in the Americas and some of the British plantations as indentured servants. What's going to happen for Africa? We're going to talk about Africa this class and next class. Africa was already taken over last unit, parts of it. If you remember, the coastal parts of Africa were colonized, like West Africa, South Africa, East Africa. But the Europeans were not able to get into interior Africa because they would get sick from things like malaria. And also they couldn't navigate the rivers. But we're going to have new technology and new medicine during this unit. They're going to be able to use steamboats to navigate like the Niger River. And they're going to have a new type of medicine that's going to prevent them from getting malaria called quinine. So during this time, Africa is going to be taken over by the European countries. There is going to be a fear that the European countries will fight each other for Africa. So in 1885, the European countries meet in Berlin, Germany, and they're going to divide up Africa amongst themselves. This is called the Berlin Conference. Obviously, they did not ask any of the Africans what they thought. They're just treating them like they're non-people, and they divide up all of Africa amongst themselves. We'll start talking about West Africa. West Africa will be colonized by the French. In West Africa, they export vegetable oils and cottons. French West Africa will be established in 1895. They're going to create a centralized government. It's going to be directly ruled from Paris by French governor. All levels of government will be run by the French. There will be some people that were trying to resist the French. One of the groups formed is called the Moridaya Brotherhood. This is made up of peasants, former slaves, defeated warriors. They're going to create a Muslim community during colonial rule. They're going to push for more self-government. The French are going to make the Africans move to different parts of the country to work in plantations and to work in the fields. Even though slavery was abolished, they're still basically doing slavery during this time. Culturally, there still will be a lot of Islamic education and piety during this time. There'll be a great Muslim revival. There will not be a lot of conversion to Roman Catholicism. Like I said before, quinine is going to allow to suppress malaria. It's going to allow Europeans to live in Africa. In West Africa, the French are going to bring with them from the New World peanuts. And peanuts are going to become a major crop in West Africa, the peanut revolution. It's going to lead to a larger population. Also, they're going to start producing cotton in this area for export. Lastly, we're going to talk about Nigeria. Nigeria is going to be set up by the British for two colonies, North and South. Eventually, it will be merged into one colony. It's going to be run by the British. The British and the Americans will set up missionary schools in Nigeria. The British actually provided education for the Indians, but a lot of those schools that the British provided for the Indians are going to create leaders that are going to want for independence. So because of this, the British are going to be very hesitant about providing education for the Africans because they realize that education leads to independence movements. You will see a much smaller middle class in Africa comparably to India because there's not going to be schools set up. There will be schools, but they're going to be ran privately by missionaries. No government-sponsored education because of how it impacted India. There'll be new steamboats moved to Nigeria, weapons, modern medicine. It's going to make conquest easier in Nigeria. The British will bring with them railroads, electricity, port facilities, and they'll try to create a unified colony. The British will abolish the slave trade in the 19th century, but there still will be slavery within the African interior, which actually goes against the British wishes. And it's going to take until the late 1800s before all slavery to be stamped down. Peanuts and yams will be introduced into this region. It'll become a major food crop. Population is going to expand in Nigeria because of this. And it's going to become some staple crops in Nigeria. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. Until next time, deuces. Deuces, deuces, yeah.